the first resolution is actually, but Lord, as this one is 4.8. Yes, this one would be 4.8, and the next one would be 4.9. Do you have that in front of you? Just, okay. So these resolutions were actually discussed in governance and finance, and Commissioner Stiver and Madam Chair can elaborate, but at this juncture, there were two things. One, why it's being presented as a live item is because there had to be some clearance, and Mr. Daglin was working on the pay-to-play disclosure statements and the actual provision that I would need in order to have an addendum, which we're desirous of this resolution and policy. And what we had to do was incorporate the provision that says, here's the addendum to the RFP bid process, which would be a document that would ask that participant, contractor, or whomever to disclose whether or not they have given any contribution to any municipal candidates. It's similar to what the city of Hoboken had adopted with respect to that. I'll let Madam Chair and Commissioner Stiver talk about that.
This is basically a resolution to implement a pay-to-play reform policy that's essentially, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Dagley, based on the research you did, modeled on, mostly on the city's... Yes, certainly. Sorry, Phyllis. This is a resolution that is essentially modeled on the city of Hoboken's pay-to-play reform ordinance, which was initially passed by referendum in 2004, and then an addendum was passed last year limiting practice known as wheeling. And what this essentially establishes is that if any vendor that wants to do business with the Hoboken Housing Authority cannot have made political contributions to any municipal campaign in the city of Hoboken within the past year. If you make a political contribution over a certain threshold, you cannot, there's a cooling off period of 1 year, you cannot do business with the Hoboken Housing Authority. Mr. Dagley, if I'm not mistaken, I know that you also implemented a couple of provisions, I think from a Guttenberg policy that you found that had some, is that?
Yeah, it's basically a combination, but it's more, it mostly follows Hoboken, city of Hoboken's.
Right.
Pay-to-play.
Right. I remember finding a couple. It escapes me now, but I actually remember seeing a couple of statements in here where the language is actually even stricter than the city of Hoboken's, and it's actually a pretty very sound policy. So again, as Director Garcia said, it's a live item because there was a lot of additional research that had to be done before it could be sent out. But I'm very proud to be presenting it tonight, and I strongly hope my fellow commissioners will vote for it. Thank you.
The question I have is, just why is it a live item? Like, just why weren't we given more notice of it than 5 minutes before?
Well, I mean, on my part, and I think, again, Madam Chair and Commissioner Stiver can address this a little bit more, but I mean, for me personally, it's a good policy, you know, to protect good government, but at the same time, it was something that I know we were working on to the 11th hour, you know what I mean? That's the only thing that, you know, I have to put on the record that we kept working on it to tweak. There were some tweaks that were being made to ensure that, again, the substance of it met with, you know, not only your standards, but at least had a distinction to what was already in place.
There were some elements that we had to make sure that they applied to the housing authority. That they're not, because we're not a municipal government. We're a different kind of agency. They had to be tweaked to apply to a housing authority, and also there were a couple of things we just had to make sure were consistent with the law.
Right. I mean, I agree. I think it's a good idea. My question is just, I guess, why do we have to vote on it today? Why can't we digest it and vote on it?
I just personally think it's a great policy that makes us a better agency. It improves that enhances the integrity, the reputation.
No, right. I agree with that. It's just that.
Well, we do have a lot of RFPs that we're putting out, that we're about to put out. It'll actually enhance people's interest in doing business with us. I encourage support.
Right. Again, I'm not saying I don't support it. It's just the fact we haven't had time. I mean, like other times, other times, Director Garcia, I mean, I've brought up the fact that I've gotten the budget, you know, a day or two before, and it's not enough time to digest our whole budget. Not to say that I'm not in favor of the budget, it's just more time to digest. That would be my own question.
Well, there's very little in here in the end that's inconsistent with what
I
exists.
can't hear you.
We're gonna use this microphone, okay, so like that you guys can be heard.
It's a miracle you only got one.
Commissioner Gonzalez, I can appreciate your concern. I would just say that in the end, it turns out there's really very little, if anything, in here that isn't in the existing municipal ordinance. So there's no surprises. There's nothing you're voting on that you're going to wind up regretting. I mean, if you want to read it, if you have any questions for me now, but there's nothing in it. This is basically what's on the books in the city of Hoboken. Well, did you read it?
Well, no, I just got it now. That's my point. Again, I'm not saying that I'm not saying I'm not for it. I'm just saying I just got it now. I haven't had time to read it. That's all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions. Again, I didn't have the opportunity to read it either. We all got it here tonight. With the pay-to-play reforms, both at the city and at the Board of Education, those are specific to those bodies. Why is this not specific to this body? Meaning, if there was a political contribution by a member of this board or someone being appointed to this board, that's not in this, as far as I could see, and correct me if I'm wrong. And it also doesn't make any mention about elected members to the Hoboken School Board. This just strictly states candidates for elected municipal office. So I think it kind of falls short. We have to, if we're going to do it, I think we should do it across the board, meaning elected school board members should be included, and then anyone who's being appointed to this board or who's being appointed to this board being a contributor or receiving a contribution, I think should be included as well.
One, I think, Commissioner, respectfully, I think you're viewing it too narrowly. It says respectfully. It says specifically elected municipal positions. That would be, in my opinion, the school board. If you disagree, I
Okay,
don't.
no, that's fine. If it's going to be interpreted that way, I don't have a problem with that.
As
But
far as your point about contributions to individuals on this board,
correct.
this board doesn't campaign.
No, but contributions from members who would be appointed to this board is a whole different issue.
And then, but that issue goes to different constitutional issues. I don't think there is that a count, as far as I know, that in the Hoboken case, that a council couldn't contribute to anybody you want.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
This
I understand.
is, the idea is pay to play.
Sure.
In that if a company or organization wants to play with us, they don't have to pay.
Correct.
Where an individual, to tell an individual that she, Commissioner Wolf, give me an example, couldn't contribute to anybody they want and not be a member of this board, I think would be declared unconstitutional, but again, I can research that further.
Sure, and again, I think it would be something above and beyond this, but I think it's something that we should look at.
I hear.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's the potato.
So, members of the board, again, this is your prerogative and your, decision on what you guys do with this, with all the, at any time, with any resolution. So, I'm just sharing what is, been brought before you with respect to, Madam Chair and, Commissioner Stiver, and what was discussed pretty much at the Governance and Finance Committee meeting. And the second one that you have in front of you, which is, with respect to amending the ACOP. I mean, one of the things we've been talking about, and you guys have heard me speak about this, and it was discussed again in committee, we want to move into the next level with our management information system. We want to move into the next level of automating everything. We've talked about automation, and we talk about streamlining. And of course, in the spirit of, again, transparency and protecting good government and basically espousing that, we need to amend the ACOP in order to allow me to put the wait list online. So what we are intending to do, the goal is to basically place the wait list online, where a applicant can go online with a user ID and a password, which would be their email address and hopefully their last 4 digits of the social security number. They can go online and view their ranking, because everything is computerized. Make no mistake about it that the Gilson software solution is the solution that we have. That's our information, our management information system that pretty much computes everything and produces the rankings by the wait list. So therefore, that person now can go online and see their ranking, and it would tell them when did they apply, what their status is, how many preferences they have, and what their ranking is. And this is, again, this is something that, as policy, is, again, forward-thinking, very much a discussion that this board has had for months, and actually going back to a year ago. So I think this is appropriate. And if we're going to do it for May 1st, which is the goal right now, to have our software provider put this wait list online for May 1st. And the reason why it's being brought to you at this moment, and again, my apologies on it, but with respect to this one, it's because Gilson, I wanted assurances that they can actually make this happen by May 1st.
How high is their, I mean, I'm sure it's very high, but security, given the type of information that they're going to be managing on behalf of our residents, is it secure?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Gilson is a national company who basically at this juncture has multiple firewalls in order to protect and preserve that residence, because you have the Privacy Act. We always have to be conscientious of the Privacy Act. So what happens is the security is top notch. And one of the things, I mean, you have 10Mass that does it, you have Happy that does it, but they do it for their clients, because what happens is that data is proprietary to that information system that you have, basically. So PHA Partner is our management information system. So in PHA Partner, which belongs to Gilson Software, they are the only ones that have access to that information. So the applicant would go through, let's say, gilson.com, www.gilson.com, or there would be a URL link on our website that would take them to their server, because we're not going to house it on our server, because we already have our internal server for our existing data in-house. So Gilson would house it themselves. They host the server, they house it themselves. So when that applicant goes via the web, they're going directly to Gilson. They're not coming through the Hoboken Housing Authority. It's going directly to Gilson. Gilson says, here's where you are, here's your data, and that's pretty much it.
Now, I have 2 quick questions on that. So first thing is, when somebody logs in and checks their status on the wait list, I know that there are various situations that come up, like the Jackson Street fire, where we'll have an emergency situation where somebody will be expedited up. How detailed will the explanation be if their status has changed, if they've moved up or down? Will there be any kind of, do we have the ability to sort of give them a sentence or two as to where they're at and what the most recent change is?
Great question.
Okay.
What happens is there'll be a unique identifier. So for instance, Jake Stiver is 1001.
Okay.
Eduardo is 1003. You have your unique identifier. So if in the event you have a situation where preferences change, so for instance, let me give you the hypothetical. So you apply 2010. We're talking about 2-bedroom. You apply, you requested a 2-bedroom, you got the application 2010 when we opened up the wait list. Now you only have one preference. You're a Hoboken resident or a former Hoboken resident. Now all of a sudden someone who applied the same day as you, but maybe an hour later, they have 2 preferences. They're a Hoboken resident or former resident, and they're disabled. So they get 2 preferences. So that person, although they applied an hour later than you, would it be ahead of you based on their weighted preferences? So the system would tell someone if in fact that unique identifier would determine if you've fallen back or you've moved ahead. And if you fall back, then the explanation will be afforded to the applicant
Okay.
online.
Right.
And that